This video is produced by Verdict Productions in cooperation with Ex-Mormons United. There are over 14 million Mormons in the world today, over 6 million in the United States alone. They are all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah. Many people think that the Mormons are like the Amish, that they don't have sex of any kind before marriage. The church loves to present Mormons as a very honest and moral people. We, however, know the truth about Mormons and sex. While it is true that Mormons don't openly talk about sex, the great majority of single and divorced Mormons do indeed have sex, and they have sex in amounts equaling that of the general public. But, again, Mormons don't talk about sex. Many Mormons believe that talking about sex is a sin. But the sex itself is not a sin, as long as it is not discussed and kept private. Therefore, most Mormons keep the unspoken rule of not talking about sex, even though single Mormons have sex as much as the general public at large does. They engage in premarital and postmarital sex, even though the Mormon Church teaches that sex outside of marriage is a major sin almost as bad as murder. The Mormon Church was founded by Joseph Smith, whom Mormons believe to be a true prophet of God. Mormons are taught by their leaders today that Joseph Smith was married to one woman, Emma Smith. No mention is made in official church books published today that Joseph Smith not only had one, but 33 wives. Many Mormons are unaware that Joseph Smith had 33 wives, all of them secret except for his wife Emma. The wives of Joseph Smith, according to official Mormon history, included women and their own daughters, as well as Joseph Smith's own foster daughters, the Lawrence sisters. His wives included girls as young as 14 years old. Among his 32 secret wives were 11 women who were already married to other men, who lived with their husbands, while they occasionally had sex in secret with Joseph Smith. According to Sarah Pratt, the wife of Mormon apostle Orson Pratt, Joseph Smith tried to seduce her while her husband, Orson Pratt, was on a mission for the church in England. Also, Nancy Rigdon, the teenaged daughter of Sidney Rigdon, an early Mormon leader, claimed that Joseph Smith also tried to sexually seduce her, promising her and her family exaltation in the celestial kingdom if she had sex with him. Sidney Rigdon later left the Mormon church, stating that Joseph Smith was a fallen prophet and had become like David in the Bible, the Hebrew king who killed another man so he could commit adultery with the man's wife. Rigdon claimed that Joseph Smith had become a fallen prophet, and that he had become a liar and an adulterer. Sidney Rigdon had at one time been Joseph Smith's closest friend and supporter. Mormons today are never told any of this. In 1834, Joseph Smith hired a nanny for his and his wife's children. The nanny was 16-year-old Fanny Alger. Fanny was known to be very beautiful. She continued as nanny until Emma Smith found Joseph Smith and Fanny having sex in their barn. Fanny became pregnant and then went to live with her sister. This was 9 years before Joseph Smith claimed to receive Doctrine and Covenants Section 32, which authorized him to take additional wives. Oliver Cowdery was the second elder of the Mormon Church. He wrote most of the Book of Mormon as Joseph Smith dictated it to him. Oliver Cowdery was excommunicated from the Mormon Church in 1838. Why? Because Cowdery claimed that Joseph Smith had had a sexual affair with Fanny Alger. Oliver Cowdery wrote to his brother Warren about Joseph Smith's affair with 16-year-old Fanny Alger, stating, "I did not fail to affirm that what I had said was strictly true. A dirty, nasty, filthy affair of his and Fanny Alger's was talked over, in which I strictly declare that I had never deviated from the truth on the matters." According to William McLellan, an early Mormon apostle who later left the church, Emma Smith, Joseph Smith's only legal wife, told him that she caught Joseph Smith in the barn having sex with Fanny Alger in 1834. About 9 years before Joseph Smith even claimed to have a revelation from God authorizing the practice of polygamy. Joseph Smith also publicly denied that he was a polygamist. He referred to polygamy as a doctrine of the devil, yet, at the same time, he was a secret polygamist. Not all young women accepted his sexual advances. Some rejected him, and then they came forward claiming that he had tried to seduce them. Joseph Smith called them whores and liars. Joseph Smith always denied he practiced polygamy. Joseph Smith lied. What we are saying to you here today is not a false anti-Mormon claim. What we are saying is fully documented as accepted fact by all Mormon historians. All Mormon historians know that Joseph Smith denied he was a polygamist in public, but was in fact a polygamist in private, and that Joseph Smith tried to ruin the reputation of young girls and women who claimed he tried to seduce them. What these girls and women were claiming was the truth. In 1832, in Ohio, Joseph Smith was tarred and feathered by a mob. Mormons are told this was done because Joseph Smith was the founder of a hated religion. But the truth of the matter is that Joseph Smith was tarred and feathered in Ohio in 1832 because he was having sex with young teenage girls in the village. Official Mormon history states that Joseph Smith had 33 wives, and that this was a commandment by God. According to one of these so-called wives, Joseph Smith told her that an angel with a flaming sword appeared to him and commanded him to take many wives or be destroyed. What else could he do but to obey the angel and have sex with all these young beautiful women? The real reason Joseph Smith was killed in June 1844. Joseph Smith was killed by an angry mob in Carthage, Illinois in June of 1844. Mormons are told that an anti-Mormon mob killed Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram because Joseph was the founder of a hated religion. But this is not true. We will tell you the real reason that Joseph Smith was killed in 1844. In 1843, Joseph Smith told another Mormon leader, the second highest Mormon in the church, a man named William Law, that polygamy was true, and that if William Law would share his wife with him, then Joseph would share Emma with William Law. William Law rejected this and concluded that Joseph Smith was a fallen prophet. They were determined to save the church by ousting Joseph Smith and appointing David Whitmer as the new prophet. In 1844, William Law and other anti-polygamous Mormons started the Nauvoo Expositor newspaper in Nauvoo. The newspaper revealed that Joseph Smith was a secret polygamist, while at the same time publicly condemning polygamy. They called for Joseph Smith to step down as president of the church. In response, Joseph Smith ordered the Nauvoo town marshal to close down the offices of the Nauvoo Expositor and to destroy the printing plates of the newspaper with a sledgehammer. This was done. William Law and the other anti-polygamous Mormons fled Nauvoo after getting death threats. When the governor of Illinois, Thomas Ford, heard what Joseph Smith had done, he issued an arrest warrant. At first, Joseph Smith tried to flee to Iowa, but was later convinced to stand trial because the Nauvoo city charter allowed the mayor to do what Joseph Smith had done to the Nauvoo Expositor. According to official Mormon history, which most Mormons never hear or are never told about, Joseph Smith and those with him in Carthage jail drank hard liquor and smoked pipes on the night before the killing, and Joseph Smith wrote letters asking the Nauvoo Legion, a large Mormon militia in Nauvoo, to come rescue him. But the letter never reached Nauvoo in time. This is an Ethan Allen 1837 patent small 6-shooter pistol. This is the gun type that Joseph Smith used at Carthage jail to shoot 3 men, killing 2 of them. Mormons are told that Joseph Smith went to his death like a martyr, but this is not true. A gun was smuggled into the jail on the night before the killing, and Joseph Smith used it to shoot at the mob. Joseph Smith was not killed at Carthage jail because he was the founder of a hated religion, but because he illegally closed down a newspaper that truthfully revealed his secret practice of polygamy. Even today, every Mormon male expects that when he becomes a god in the celestial kingdom, he will be given additional wives, and that all gods in the celestial kingdom have multiple wives. Every Mormon male expects to have literal physical sex with these multiple wives for all eternity. Early Mormon prophets and apostles taught that Jesus was a polygamist, and even fathered many children by these women. The Mormon Church teaches that Joseph Smith was persecuted and killed because he claimed to be a prophet and was the founder of a hated religion. But the truth is that Joseph Smith was persecuted and ultimately killed because he couldn't keep his hands off of beautiful teen girls and the wives of other men, and because he persecuted those who told the truth about his secret sexual practices. The doctrine of heavenly incest. In the 1850s, Brigham Young introduced a new doctrine into the Mormon Church. He taught that God the Father sired Jesus with Mary, his own spirit daughter, in a natural way, in the same way that all sons are begotten. We refer to this doctrine as the doctrine of heavenly incest, but Mormons who know about this doctrine simply refer to it as one of the privileges of becoming a god. What they mean is the privilege of having sex with one's own spirit daughters. Indeed, Mormon leaders taught for 150 years that God the Father stepped down from his throne and came to earth and had literal physical sex with his spirit daughter Mary in order to produce the physical body of Jesus Christ. You can read direct quotes from Mormon leaders about this doctrine on the link that we will give you at the end of this video. Mormon leaders have not openly taught the heavenly incest doctrine since 1972. Therefore, many younger Mormons are unaware of it. But, still today, most Mormon men above the age of 50 still believe in the heavenly incest doctrine, which is called by them one of the privileges of becoming a god. Mormon men were promised that if they are blindly obedient to Mormon leaders to the end of their lives, they shall have the privilege to create their own worlds, and to send their most beautiful spirit daughters to those worlds to become the mothers of saviors for those worlds, and to go down and have sex with those beautiful spirit daughters to produce a savior for each world they had created. The doctrine of heavenly incest was taught by Mormon leaders to rank-and-file Mormons openly until 1972. Most older Mormons still believe in it. Most Mormons under the age of 50 are totally unaware of this doctrine. Mormon leaders still believe in it, but it is not taught openly because of public relations reasons. The Curse of Cain doctrine. The church also claims it never taught that blacks were the cursed children of Cain. This is also a big lie, again, for the purpose of public relations. The Bible teaches that Mary was a virgin when she conceived Jesus, and, indeed, the Book of Mormon calls Mary a virgin before and after Jesus is conceived and born. But Mormon leaders interpreted Mary's virginity to mean that she had sex with God, her heavenly Father, and not with mortal man. They also taught that sex with God was exactly like sex with a mortal man. The doctrine of heavenly incest was taught openly in general conferences and state conferences by Mormon presidents and apostles from the 1850s to the early 1970s. It was openly taught in official Mormon publications until 1972. It was taught openly in the book Mormon Doctrine by Mormon apostle Bruce R. McConkie, the most widely read Mormon book in the 1960s to the late 1990s. Although not now openly taught by church leaders, the church has never repudiated this doctrine, and most Mormon men over the age of 50 still believe in it. Sex and the Single Mormon and Pornography in Utah. A survey taken at Brigham Young University, a Mormon university in Utah, found that 58% of Mormon women at that institution admitted they had had sex before marriage. That is about the same average for the general white population in the United States, proving again that single Mormons are just as sexually active as the general population. There is no difference whatsoever between the sexual activity of active unmarried Mormons and that of other unmarried white Americans. Other surveys show that Utah has the highest amount of people who subscribe to cable pornography channels. Mississippi is second. An active Mormon would never even think about going to a porn shop to buy porn, but because he can keep it a secret, many active Mormon men view pornography on the internet or buy cable porn. Again, if nobody sees them, and they keep it private, many Mormons think God is okay with it. Not all Mormon men think like this, but many, many do. Secret Mormon high schools for unwed pregnant Mormon girls. There is a great problem in the Mormon Church with unwanted teen pregnancy. Mormon leaders have decided to deal with this problem by hiding it. If a teenaged Mormon girl gets pregnant, she is sent off to one of these high schools away from her home. Her parents are told to tell other church members that the girl is living with relatives for a year. Once the young Mormon girl has a child at the secret Mormon high school for unwed pregnant Mormon girls, the child is adopted by active Mormon couples who cannot have children, and the Mormon girls are told to not discuss anything about their pregnancy or the adoption of their child when they are sent back home. They are instructed to lie, to tell people they merely lived with relatives for a year. Many Mormon leaders believe in the principle called lying for the Lord. In other words, if you tell a lie that protects the church, or protects a church leader past or present, or protects the public image of the church, then you are lying for the Lord, and therefore the Lord approves of the lie, and therefore it is not a sin to lie for the Lord. This is why Mormon church leaders never tell rank-and-file Mormons about Joseph Smith's polygamy, his affair with Fanny Alger, or his attempted seductions of Sarah Pratt and Nancy Rigdon. While there is less vaginal sex among non-married Mormons than the general population, there is more oral and anal sex than in the general population. Mormon girls believe they can remain virgins if they simply don't have vaginal sex, but many or most of them believe that oral sex is okay before marriage. One common saying among Mormons in Utah is, "Oral is moral." While active Mormons call themselves Latter-day Saints, the truth of the matter is that most active Mormons are Latter-day Aints. Summary. Joseph Smith had 32 secret wives. Joseph Smith called polygamy false and a doctrine of the devil, while at the same time he secretly practiced polygamy. Joseph Smith married mothers and their own daughters as well as his own foster daughters. Joseph Smith had an affair with Fanny Alger 9 years before receiving God's permission to have multiple wives. Joseph Smith tried to seduce Sarah Pratt and Nancy Rigdon and called them whores and liars when they told on him. Joseph Smith was persecuted and killed not because he claimed to be a prophet, but because of his sexual activities with teenage girls and the wives of other men. Mormon prophets and apostles from the 1850s to 1972 openly and publicly taught that God the Father begot Jesus with Mary in the very same way that mortal men beget mortal sons. Early Mormon leaders taught Jesus was a polygamist. Mormons today are never told that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, nor about his affair with Fanny Alger, or the fact that 11 of his 32 secret wives were married to other men. Most Mormon men over the age of 50 still believe in the doctrine of heavenly incest, but most younger Mormons are unaware of it because they've never been taught it. The church maintains secret homes and high schools for unwed pregnant Mormon girls, and these girls and their families are told to lie to others about where the girls have been for a year. The children born of these girls are adopted by active Mormon couples who cannot have children of their own. Active Mormons are just as sexually active before marriage as is the general white population in the United States. The church tries to present Mormons as more righteous and moral than other people, but the fact is that this is not the case. If you are a Mormon, but no longer believe in Mormonism, then we encourage you to write a letter of resignation to your bishop today. The process is very easy. We'll show you how. Many Mormons who discover the truth about Mormonism lose faith in God and religion completely, and become atheists or agnostics. But just because Mormonism is not true, this does not mean that there is no God. There are thousands of religions and churches to choose from, founded by men who did not try to have sex with every beautiful woman they saw. We invite you to become a seeker of truth, and to study many religions and churches.